You're listening to This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs, so sit back, relax, take your black pill, and enjoy the show.
We're live. Hey, friends. Yes, we are. There's kind of a little bit of a glitch there in the beginning, but hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs. I'm Hobbs. He's Ben here in Clown World. And unfortunately, I have been a little bit behind the news because of some things going on at work, so we might end up having to lean on Simon quite heavily tonight. I sent him the message, and hopefully he pops in here sooner rather than later. But other than that, it is, once again, the most important election of our lifetime. Seems like that is every year.
Before we get going, though, I mean, we got some very important stuff to take care of here. We need a moment of silence for your boy Peanut.
I shouldn't
Come on,
laugh.
no laughing.
It is tragic. There has
nuts
been
out
some
for Peanut.
Nuts out for Peanut. Yep.
I mean, we're all used to getting our dicks out for Harambe. Do a little extra effort. Get the nuts out there too, just for both of them.
Yeah, it's, this seems to be the final thread holding civilization together. Was a squirrel that I didn't even know existed, and now it's dead. And everybody's okay.
I had it pop up on my feed a couple times, just a little squirrel doing goofy shit in a cowboy hat and riding around on the dude's shoulder. Wasn't my thing, but do you know the details of the story? Have you picked that up though?
From what I've been able to pick up so far, so this guy had this pet squirrel
and a raccoon,
and they had like an Instagram page with 1 million followers or something like that, and they ran an unlicensed wild animal rehab in upstate New York. And if what I'm reading is correct, there was some jealous bitch who found out that the wildlife rehab was unlicensed, and so she made a report. And the New York State Department of Environmental something or other paid this man a visit with like 6 cops, and they had him and his wife outside for 5 hours while they ransacked the house to find this squirrel and this raccoon that they've had for like 2 years, and they confiscated the animals and euthanized them.
Just coincidentally, he's a huge Trump supporter. So, I mean, surely that had nothing to do with it.
It's a possibility. But, the woman who made the complaint, I guess somebody found out who it was, and she is in the process of having her life completely ruined. So, go in.
I mean, it wasn't a small account either. It wasn't like he had like something like 500,000 followers on Instagram. I mean,
yeah, the Peanut one had 1 million.
Yeah,
Said he was the first. So it was the first domesticated squirrel to have over 1 million followers on social media.
So yeah, you were like, "What's the news?" Well, Trump and Harris and Peanut the squirrel. That's been the news lately.
Yep. Fred the raccoon is kind of falling through the cracks here, so can't forget about him either.
Poor Fred. Yeah, I mean, we're in the final stretch here. Mm-hmm. All sorts of weird shit going on. It seems, they talked about how the election was stolen, the last one, and the Republicans keep getting caught. You keep seeing them get caught doing shit that the media is throwing out there, but that just shows how easy it was to cheat. I had no idea that it was that easy. In some states, you can just go to the poll and be like, "Hi, can I have a ballot?" Fill it out, throw it in, go do a lap around the building. "Hi, can I have a ballot?"
Yeah. What are you hearing about them? They're catching Republicans doing stuff, or Republicans are catching them doing stuff?
Well, the ones that the media puts out there, they're publicizing those ones, like the guy that put the incendiary devices in the ballot boxes. They happened to catch a guy who filled out multiple ballots, and he, just happened to be a Republican. I think they're just realizing how easy it is to cheat, and they're just going for it. The whole system's pretty fucked. And it got me thinking at this point, I made the comment the last real president was JFK.
Yeah.
Everybody since then has probably been decided for us. I mean, if you think about how easy it is, even in past elections, so you're going into election, the people counting it, they can just fucking lose ballots. It kind of makes sense why they're trying to cram all these people into the cities, because then you can tilt the vote that much more.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of time those are blue controlled.
Yeah.
So especially when you look at which states have strict laws for voting, it's always the red states, and the blue states always have the most lax one, because you have these cities that are just apparently they're just basically ballot farms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we had Donald Trump go on Joe Rogan last week, and a few days ago, JD Vance went on.
Mhm.
And as entertaining as Trump is, and he gets into these sort of like long form, informal interviews, JD Vance is 10 times better in
Right.
that setting. Because the thing about him is he's talking off the cuff, extemporaneously, just two dudes chatting, and there's almost zero well, he just knows it, and he knows his point, and he gets it out there, and that really makes for a good, solid interview. That I hope people saw that one. Everybody was talking about the Trump one, but I think that the Vance one was the better one, both from a policy position standpoint and
Did
just
he get into election fraud at all?
yeah, he did. And they talked about how uh, Joe brought up the voter ID thing, and how some states don't have voter ID. Some states have got voter ID, but it was kind of an uphill battle. And then you've got California, where they have a law against ever asking for
Mhm.
voter ID. And so Joe he's just flat out. He's like, I cannot in any way give any benefit of the doubt at all for any reason that you would do something like that, except if you want to cheat.
Well,
And
yeah, the GOP, it seems like they've been singly obsessed on voter fraud, when instead of looking at the bigger picture. You're pissing your time away trying to catch, voters, when go all the way to the top. I mean, why do you even have to do voter fraud if you can just put in whatever numbers you want, or lose ballots, or just come up with a bunch of numbers? Uh, the it just I went on a rant, being an edgy libertarian back in the day, about how elections don't matter anyways, just kind of because
mhm,
if elections did matter, they would never let us do it. And the shitty thing is that maybe I was 100% right 15, 16 years ago. They've just been deciding for us, apparently. From one Look at who we've had for candidates. It's just been one deep state shill after another on both sides.
right, yeah. And I don't think that Donald Trump was supposed to happen.
No, not at
And
all. I mean, the only reason he got pushed was because they thought that Hillary would win.
mhm,
And I'm sure they had the stuff in previous elections. They had the stuff in place to rig it how they wanted. They just didn't think they would have to do it against Donald. They're like, all right, well, we don't have to have
yeah,
these boxes of ballots ready to go, because
right,
there's no way he's going to win. And they
yeah.
got caught with their pants down.
Yeah, they had the media, they had Hollywood, they had academia, they had pop culture, they had everything telling the entire population of the United States that this guy was no good. He would be a terrible president. And they had all of the polls saying that it was like a 97% certainty that Hillary was going to be the president. Everything was skewed against the guy. And then at the end of the night, when all the ballots were counted, it's like, oh shit. Oops.
And
So
listening to Trump on the Joe Rogan one, it made you realize just, he didn't really, as shitty as it sounds, he didn't really have a plan for if he won. He kind of just thought he'd get helped out. It'd be like if you or I just went out and ran for president, and for some reason our message really caught on, and we end up in the Oval Office, and we don't have, a sheet of of people vetted for us by the GOP that, you know, these people are okay. Trump should have went in there, which he's doing this time. I mean, he's got a whole list of people ready to go, as opposed to relying on, and he said this on the Joe Rogan one, that people came to with names. They're just like, put this guy here, put this guy here. And he really fucked up.
Yeah. Well, I think he went in there under the assumption that most people have, that Republicans and Democrats are on opposite teams. And if you win the Republican nomination and you get the Republican apparatus behind you, then they're going to do what is necessary to make the Republican, you know, big R Republican team look good. And unfortunately, it took him his first term to realize that the Republicans and the Democrats in Washington, D.C. are on Washington, D.C.'s side. And he, as an outsider to Washington, D.C., was not on their team. And the things that he wanted to do did not jive well with the Washington, D.C. team. So the Washington, D.C. Republicans decided to, you know, guys like Reince Priebus and Jared Kushner, you know, they gave him deep state appointments that drug their feet, gave him bad information.
Well, look at the Syria thing. More info's come out about in Syria, how they just outright lied to him. And somebody, I forget where I saw it. It was a video of one of the commanders in charge of the situation in Syria. And a reporter asked him, how many troops are in Syria? And I don't know if he is tired or what, but at first he said 55,000. And then you saw he kind of have an, oh shit look on his face. It's like 5,000. I mean, 500. And the media in the room is just laughing because you can tell he's just bullshitting, you know. And they told Trump they never let him know how many troops were actually in Syria. So he thought, I'm going to pull out of Syria. You know, I'm getting these 500 guys out of there. Well, there's 55,000 and multiple bases in there.
Yeah. And I mean, there should be some court martials involved. You know, that's something me and Nathan talked about when all that stuff went down. It's like the president is the commander in chief, and he is the highest ranking officer of the military. And as long as the orders are lawful and constitutional, they need to be followed. Failing to do so is mutiny.
Treasonous.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, treason or mutiny. Especially when you consider that the orders that he was given was to take American lives and assets out of imminent danger. So that's even more reason to follow these orders to the letter.
Yeah.
You know, if the president comes in and gives an order to like sweep into a town in the United States and like round up all the men and press gang them into going overseas and fighting, you know, that's an unlawful order and they shouldn't follow through on it. But if the president gives an order to, hey, get all of our military personnel and equipment out of a country that we haven't declared war on, fucking Diddy Mao, man, let's go.
Yeah. I guess that's part of what pissed Mattis off too, was, you know, Trump is trying, I mean, he's a Marine. Sure, he's going to want to go kill shit. Trump was trying to get out of things, and Mattis got pissed off over it. You know, and I saw another story that, you know, once Trump realized that his generals were lying to him, he wanted to find out what the real situation was. So I guess he had it was either a meeting, I don't know where it was held at, but he got a bunch of enlisted from Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And sat down in a room. Did you hear this story?
I heard some of it, yeah.
Yeah, and he sat down in a room with them, and he was like, he wanted to find out what was really going on. Well, that pissed off all his generals.
Yeah. Well, that's the best way to do, if you want to get the full, the pulse of what's actually going on in an AO, you talk to some dipshit private who's out there actually like, you know, boots in the mud, you know, you don't talk to some 3-star in a cushy office in the green zone.
Yeah.
Go get your stuffy.
Nobody makes general by being good at combat. It's good at politics.
At a certain point, yeah, I think
It's all politics.
that threshold from lieutenant colonel to colonel is when
Yep.
you go from being a combat leader to a politician.
Hmm.
Essentially, that's what I
And
was always told.
Trump probably didn't realize that, not being involved with the military at all, so he just assumed.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I'm starting to understand that there was a lot of fuck ups in that first term, just because you wouldn't think he would trust people that much or have that little of an understanding of how the situation works, but he was not involved with politics at all. I mean, he would sign checks to people,
Hmm.
but he didn't really understand how the game was played at all.
Yeah, I think that he was under the assumption that the military, those are solid dudes. They'll play me straight. The politicians want what's best for America, and the Democrats and Republicans have differing opinions on the road that takes to get there, but we all want to go in the same direction, whatever's best for America. And unfortunately, that's not the case.
Yeah, and
The
I don't
upper,
really understand why they didn't kill him in the first term then. I mean, I don't know they had Pence behind him as their go-to deep state guy. I don't understand why they just didn't off him in that first term and waited until he ran again.
maybe they figured that doing that for 4 years would just destroy any desire that he might have to do it again. Or maybe they figured that as bad as they were to him in the news and in the media, and they sabotaged everything that might make him end up looking good, that he would have no chance to do it again.
Just beat him down enough that he caves into the state.
Hmm. Well, that was one of the things that Joe Rogan talked to JD Vance about. He's like, you look at pictures of George W. Bush or Bill Clinton or Barack Obama on like day one of the presidency versus the last day of their presidency. They look like they aged 25 years. He's like, Trump
Yeah.
looks better now. He's like, how is that possible?
Yeah. Thrives on it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, he
It's all that
must.
Diet Coke and cheeseburgers or something. He's chock full of preservatives.
Must be.
That's my other concern. He seems a lot, last time it seemed like he was just having fun, running because, he was going in blind.
Hmm.
It was a fun thing for him. This time he seems a lot more serious. He understands the gravity of the situation.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's going to wear him down more if he gets in there.
It might be that, or it might just be that he sees how serious it is. It's starting to come out now, proof of what we already knew, that they sabotaged his first term. They lied to him. They did everything against the guy. And we have the documents now to prove that it wasn't just an oopsie, that they did it on purpose. And now they've tried to kill him at least
Yeah.
twice. And so now he's like, okay, it's on. And he's pulled all of these people in. He's going to start doing some stuff that, man, if he's not living like 24/7 in some type of like Pope mobile or something, just covered with
Right.
armored glass, he's putting himself in a lot of danger. He's got RFK on board. RFK put a tweet out the other day that's like, January 20th, one of the first things that he does as soon as he sits down behind the Resolute desk is executive order, no more fluoride in the water.
Yeah.
Just
He's
like
talked
that.
about that multiple times.
Yep. Just like that. He's got Elon Musk putting together a team for the Department of Government Efficiency, going to start slashing it. One of the names that he's floating out there is Ron Paul. This is Ron Paul's time to shine. This is gonna be his legacy, taking a flamethrower to the federal government.
How old is Ron Paul? He's got to be
Late 80s, I think, 86.
Yeah. Ron
something
Paul's
like
got a whole, institute backing him though. So they could, he definitely has some support system there to do what he wants to do. And it sounds like he's looking at doing kind of what Milley did.
Yeah. I gotta say it's gonna hurt for a little bit, but I think that
I don't see him making it then. I mean, they've already demonstrated their skills with the silent coup against Biden. So
Yeah, we'll see. But I mean, this might just be what it feels like to be white pilled. I'm kind of excited, getting kind of excited.
I don't think they'll let him win. I think they're just gonna fucking. There's too much at stake this time because they're ready for it, and he knows what he wants to do, and he has people lined up to put in. I don't think they'll let him win.
Well, we'll have to see. I'm sure that he's going to learn something from the 2020 election, and he's not going to get trampled in the courts for standing like he did last time, which was just the biggest crock of bullshit. They pulled out all of the little legal tricks that they possibly could in 2020 to keep from even seeing probable cause and evidence.
Yeah. Well, and the vote early thing, that's really, I mean, whoever started coordinating that, it caught on like wildfire. And I guess the main reason that I heard Bongino explain, we talked about a little bit, is because it creates so much of I mean, everything's recorded that you voted. It creates so much of a lead up that they can't pull their fuckery to mess around with it. If they've got to lose that many votes to make it work, it's like, yeah, they can't make that happen.
Yeah, there's only so many registered voters in a district.
Yeah,
and if all of the votes are cast, 2 weeks ahead of time on election night comes in, you only got a few thousand people left. They come in, they do their votes, and then you start counting. It's like, well, what do we need in this district to win? Oh, we need 10,000 votes, but looks like we got 95% turnout. We just don't have the 10,000.
Yeah, and
they can't
lose. They can't lose them after they're if it's on election night, they can just never be documented as coming in. But if you're voting early, I mean, you can't lose those. Those are already in the bank.
Yep, already banked.
And when I see there's something like 73 million early votes already nationwide.
Yeah.
Let's see. Early. My noisy keyboard. I thought I saw it was that. Nearly half of 2020's electorate have already cast their ballots in 2024.
Yeah.
So that's creating a situation that they can't overcome. And the other thing that I saw will probably affect it a lot is, in voter rolls, people are ranked by how often they vote.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that have never voted in like the last 4 elections are starting to turn out.
Yeah.
That's those people that, just go along to get along. Nothing's affecting them. So fuck it. I don't care who gets it. And
yeah.
They're starting to be affected.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up again, but there's a guy, I think his name's like Eric Daughtry or something, who's been keeping tabs on what you're talking about there. There's it's called like 4x4 electorate, where it's the people who have voted in the last 4 primaries and the 4 general elections.
Yep.
And those are the people that are like politically plugged in. And it goes down from like a 4-4 and a 3-3 all the way down to a 0-0. And this guy Eric Daughtry, I'll see if I can find him on Twitter, but he is keeping track of exit polling on those numbers, and it's swinging Trump in every single category. Sometimes by a large margin, sometimes not so much, but
and those are the people that are probably going to vote for Trump, because as bad as it is, most people that are registered Democrat, they vote fairly regularly, because I guess if you like the state, you're going to be voting. It's the people that, like I said, they don't really trust anything the state does. Mm-hmm. They don't see a reason to vote, so they just don't. And like that guy said, if they're turning out, that's a big, because you don't know what those people, a lot of them are even independent. So you don't know what those people are registered as. And I'm going to guess a lot of those, probably at least 60-40, lean towards Trump.
Yeah.
And that's going to be in those areas like Pennsylvania. There's a lot of backwoodsy in Pennsylvania, probably people who don't really see a need to vote. and they're going to turn out.
Yeah. There's I'm still trying to find that guy, but yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see what kind of shit they pull on election night, I think.
And you know, people are all up in arms about Kamala, and I've said it before. I mean, she's a deep state. It's just going to be more of the same. It's not going to be. We're not going to switch to communism because Kamala gets in there. People are like, well, she said stuff in California. Well, look what you got to do to get elected in California. I'm sure she's an empty vessel. She'll say and become whatever she needs to say to get elected. So if you come off as a communist in California, she's probably saying that to get elected. She's going to be more of the corporatist, just more of the deep state bullshit. It's going to be Mitt Romney, John McCain as president. Military industrial complex will win out. It's not going to be the end of the world. The reason why Trump would be better, because I think Trump will create a situation where, you know, it is make America great again. The policy he wants to implement is going to jump America to the front of a lot of things. Kamala is just going to be, you know, where we're at now.
Right. So I'm looking through this Eric Daughtry's, and he's very prolific, and it's one of the things that I'm seeing is a little bit weird is the poly markets have kind of shifted, especially in Pennsylvania. He was up something like 64 to 38 or 36. And in the last couple of days, it narrowed significantly. It's like 55-45 or something like that. It was a really weird shift that happened basically overnight, and I haven't seen anything that makes it make sense to me.
Yeah, there hasn't been. I mean, the Puerto Rico thing couldn't have been that bad.
Yeah, that's what people are blaming it on, but
that guy's been on radio silence. He hasn't posted anything to any social media.
Well, I don't blame him. I mean, he missed a golden opportunity. Instead of calling Puerto Rico an island of garbage, he could have used Haiti, and it would have got.
I know, so easy. Use Haiti. Nobody's gonna say, "Well, Haiti's a nice country." No, fuck.
Yeah, no,
I have no idea why he would have picked Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I mean, there's some news articles saying that they've got a bit of a trash pileup problem now during the hurricane season, blew a bunch of stuff over. But I mean, come on, man, Haiti was like, a layup.
Anybody thinking of a garbage island in the vicinity of America is going to think of Haiti.
Yeah, that, you know, but it got completely blown out of proportion, though. He said that Puerto Rico was a floating island of garbage. And then Biden turns around and says that Trump's supporters are garbage. And
they ran with that.
They ran with that. And apparently there is some speculation that the White House broke the law because they modified the transcript.
Yeah, but they are the law. So who's going to...
It's
like Kamala Harris going on Saturday Night Live last night. They didn't provide equal airtime for Trump right before an election, so that was an obvious violation. But you know, they run all the systems, so who's going to do anything about it?
Well, Trump is suing CBS for $10 billion. That's interesting. Let's see how far that goes.
Oh, all this shit with suing anymore. The lawfare is real, I guess.
Well, you know, sometimes you just gotta hit them where it hurts, and if they can sue Alex Jones for $1.5 billion, then Trump can sue them for $10 billion during a presidential election when they obviously edited it to make her seem like less of a moron.
I guess just broke that NBC did file a notice with the FCC that they were out of compliance on the Harris thing.
Well, there you go.
Which I'm sure they'll just get a slap on the wrist. Bad NBC, bad.
Yeah. pay a small fine, move on.
But I mean, that's where we're at with everything. It's just been absorbed in this lead up to the election. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, if there's going to be locations shutting down on election day, or how they're going to do it.
Right, yeah, because that was the other reason that Bongino was given for the purposes of voting early, is because you never know what's going to happen on election night. Your car could break down, have a leaky pipe at the auditorium, any number of things.
I guess that polling station in Philadelphia shut down early, and they got in trouble for that. The RNC was on top of it and started a lawsuit right away that they were shutting down early, so they extended the voting an extra day. But yeah, if something like that happens on election day, what are you going to do? Oh, okay, well, you can vote the day after election day.
Nope.
Yeah.
Sorry, it don't work that way.
And I saw, we keep talking about demographics that are going to tilt it. I saw something about Gen Z is actually being politically active, for better or worse.
For better or worse.
It seems like every new generation just kind of coasts along for 15 or 20 years until they start voting. But Gen Z, I guess, right out of the door, I saw something that early stats were showing that over half of Gen Z was or a majority of them are looking into voting, whether they will or not. I guess they're one of the worst age groups about saying they're voting and then they don't.
Well, it just kind of comes with youth and inexperience. You say a lot of stuff and you don't end up following through on it.
Right. We had a comment over here. I wish his claim about income tax was realistic, but don't think it could be done in 4 years.
Well, in order to get the income, this was something that I talked about in one of the other group chats that we were in. In order to get the income tax completely repealed and funded entirely by tariffs, you'd have to have a massive slashing of the federal government's budget, which is what Elon and Ron Paul are going to be working on. Now, people say that tariffs are kind of a stealth tax on the middle class, who are more or less the largest consumers of consumer goods. And that is true. And instigating tariffs while we also have the income tax would be awful. But even if you slash, like, let's hypothetically, let's say we cut the federal government budget in half, right? Dropped the income tax and decided to fund whatever was left on the federal government through tariffs alone. So you levy these tariffs on these companies that are doing business overseas and bringing things in. Just, quick back of the napkin math. I do not see price increases on consumer goods equaling or exceeding 35% of my paycheck.
Right.
Do you?
No.
Right. So even if the cost of goods increased dramatically because of the tariffs, giving all of the money back that was taken from the income tax, I think that almost everybody in America would be better off financially than they are before. I could be wrong.
And the theory with tariffs is that, okay, so you have widget A is made in America, and widget B in China, made in China, is made way cheaper, and it would undercut the American company because, China's not paying taxes in America or wages in America. So you put a tariff on it, so it brings it up equal to widget A made in America. The problem is we don't make shit here.
Right.
So it's completely being used improperly at that point.
But the purpose behind the tariffs is going to be kind of attacking it from both angles, is that the tariffs are going to be mostly levied against U.S. companies, like headquartered in the United States, that are doing all of their manufacturing overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one set of tariffs on those companies, telling them that, hey, if you want this tariff to go away, if you want a lower corporate tax rate too, you can bring that manufacturing back over into the United States. And the other set of tariffs is the foreign-owned companies that are doing all of their manufacturing overseas. Right. He used the example on the French wine, when France wanted to levy a tariff against something of ours, like I think it was cars or something, and we weren't levying any tariffs on any of their goods. Trump told Emmanuel Macron, he's like, you levy a tariff on our car, we're going to levy your wine and your luxury goods until we reach reciprocal parity there, so that, you know, every red cent that you tax out of us with your tariffs, we're going to take it right back in tariffs on your goods. And so Macron went to his people and was like, hey, cancel the car tariff. You know, I'd rather not play that math game. We'll let their goods come in. They'll let our goods come in. Easy peasy. And any trade deficit that takes place because of that, that's just the market deciding. Do French people want American cars more than Americans want French wine? I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, and you got to have cuts, which obviously there's plenty to be had. The $8,000 hand soap or whatever was being charged. Did you see that story?
I'm sure it's one form of government graft or another.
Same thing as, you remember, it seems like it comes up every once in a while. I guess maybe they just throw that story out there so it makes it look like they're keeping track of it. It seems like in my lifetime I can remember the $8,000 toilet seat, the $8,000 bowl. Hammer. Yeah, $500 hammer. Now we got $8,000 thing of soap.
Yeah.
The government's never going to audit the military correctly. It just goes missing.
No, there was that one a few months ago where one of the congressmen held up a bag of like washers or something, just like rubber washers. And he's like, these are rubber washers that we get from this particular vendor, and they're just rubber washers. He's like, you know how much this costs the government? He's like, $17,000 for this little baggie of rubber washers because they came from this vendor to go on this aircraft. And he's like, to the best of my knowledge, there is nothing special about these washers compared to ones that you get down from Home Depot, but it's because of the contracts and specifications that they have to come from this vendor. That's how.
It just happened to be in some congressman's district who was looking for re-election, and and there you go.
Yeah. So we got another comment over here. He says, my major concern would be another chicken tax stopping me from getting things like the Toyota Hilux. Well, you can't get the Toyota Hilux right now because of the chicken tax. And the chicken tax was a punitive tariff. I don't know. Have you ever heard that story?
No. That's a new one to me.
So way back in the day, so this is how you know that the environmental movement is bullshit. Do you know why American trucks, like pickup trucks, are so fucking gigantic?
I thought it was because we have little wieners.
Well, you would think that, but no. Environmentalists and protectionist poultry tariffs are to blame for that, because there is a tax in place for light vehicles, small pickup trucks, that don't exist for larger vehicles. So American auto manufacturers, because of a tariff placed on American poultry, and because of emission standards on light vehicles, we can't get things like little tiny pickups imported from overseas, like the Toyota Hilux or this new one they're coming out with, like called the Toyota Champ or something like that.
Yeah, there's that Indian one too, whatever the fuck it's called.
Yeah. and and so American auto manufacturers, in order to get around these emission laws and this poultry tariff, are just forced to make these gigantic trucks. Because if the truck is below a certain size, it has to meet X emission standards. But if it's above that size, then it doesn't have to meet the emission standards. And so, the F-150 is the size of a fucking tank.
And, I see a lot of Europeans when they come to America, that's something that shocks them is the size of these trucks. They're like, what the fuck are you hauling with these trucks? And it's like, they're not hauling anything most of the time.
Yeah.
They're just massive. I mean, even the Ford, every time they bring back one of this, like they brought back the Ford Ranger, it's still a big ass truck.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ford Ranger used to be the size of a sedan almost.
Right. Yeah, it was a tiny little truck, and now it's not, simply because it's something like, God, I'll send. There's 2 videos on it, and I'll have to send them to you. But it was like German light vehicles were coming into the United States at a higher rate than American poultry was going overseas to Germany, and they wanted to bolster up that trade deficit with a tariff. And so in order to do that, Germany just stopped buying American poultry, but the tariff stayed in place on the German cars. And
it's like that dumb fucking deal where American companies can't, they can't ship from American port to American port. So they got to like load it into rail first.
That's another one. So guys, there's a guy on YouTube. He's called the Fat Electrician, and he has a secondary channel called the Fat Files, where he's gone over the chicken tax. He's gone over why American trucks are so goddamn big. He's gone over why he cannot find for the life of him a like mid-90s Chevy Silverado or something because of cash for clunkers. He's gone over that
dude, I know
court law. It's like
the late 90s, I was thinking about cars I had back then. And when I was getting another car, I was like, I'm going to find one of these late 90 cars I used to own. None. They're all crushed.
Yep. They've all been crushed because of cash for clunkers. It's so fucking stupid.
We're going to be in our 60s, and those late 90s vehicles are going to be worth a fortune because everybody crushed them.
Yeah. Yeah. He said he found one in Wisconsin, and it was like just a plain Jane Chevy 1500, and the guy wanted something stupid like $35,000 for this car or for this truck with like 100,000 miles on it. And so he called the dealership up. He's like, fucking why? And he's like, because they aren't around anymore, man.
Yeah.
It's like,
I couldn't believe it. I kind of forgot about cash for clunkers until I started looking for, I thought, you know what? Just for shits and giggles, let's see if they still have any 90s Grand Ams kicking around. No.
Nope.
None within like 1,000 miles of my location. But yeah, they crushed them all. And that I saw where a company, it's been within the last 5 or 6 years, that deal where you can't go from port to port, it has to be unloaded on rail first.
Yeah.
This company had built and bought a train engine. They built a rail line on their property that was maybe a 1/4 mile long. So they would unload it from the ship, put it on this rail line, push it a 1/4 mile and load it back on the ship. And that met the requirements of it. Mm-hmm. But the feds caught on to it and pretty much shut them down.
Yeah. I know which act you're talking about, but I can't think of what the name of it is off the top of my head, but it was,
and there's no reason for it whatsoever. It's a presidential action to repeal it. Any president could have done it. It's got to be, corporate money and unions keeping it going.
Or just the fact that there's nothing quite as permanent as a temporary government measure.
Yeah. I wish I could remember what it was called too. I read up on it one time. It was started during something way back, like the Spanish-American War or something.
Yeah. That's what it was. It was a war measure to fuck with Spain or Cuba or something, where it was like you cannot. God, what was the stipulation of it? You cannot ship. You can't ship goods into America unless it's on an American flagged ship or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just
And the
something that
railroads involved too somehow. So
right, yeah, it made sense when they did it, and it should have expired when it stopped making sense, and now it's
but the
just
railroad's like, we're making a shitload of money off of this. We can't
yeah,
let that happen.
yeah, it just government,
One
man.
of the first acts of the Doge Commission.
Yeah, take a look at that stupid fucking law. Oh man, I'm running out of things to talk about. I'm getting kind of tired because I haven't been watching the news this week because of my stupid classes.
Well, I mean, and we talked about doing an election show. We did one last time, and we've been around long enough. I think we did one before that too, me and Michael. And they're just kind of lame because none of the results are in.
Yeah,
I mean, the polling place usually close at 9, I think, on the East Coast. So even then, they've only been closed for an hour, and nobody knows what's going on at that point. It's always you wake up in the morning to find out which
yeah.
corporate shill's your new overlord. Um, but Simon couldn't make it to give us any international news. Like I said, I've been listening to the news. It's just Trump and Harris all over. It's all anybody talks about.
Yeah, it is everywhere, and it is dumb.
I saw some stuff out of Ukraine. They're getting a little bit behind the curve. North Korea, I guess the details of their deal came out with Russia a little bit. I wanted to hit Simon on that one. Apparently, we talked about with BRICS, if Russia's getting stuff from India, what would they get? And Simon's like, well, rice. Well, it turns out Russia told North Korea they'll send them a shitload of rice for troops. So while India's trading rice for oil, Russia's putting it into North Korea. North Korea sends in cannon fodder for them. That's
I
an
just
interesting situation.
I still have to wonder if they're doing it because they have to or because they can.
Get some combat experience. Yeah, I haven't heard much about how the Korean troops are doing. I guess they've caught a couple already. I think Zelensky said that he's 50,000 troops in the hole for what they need to do on the next year. So they're probably they're going to be in a panic at some point, depending who gets elected. I wouldn't be surprised if Harris uses or pulls some strings in Europe to get them to send troops to Ukraine to counter the North Korean troops, and then we're in a downward spiral at that point.
Yeah. You want to call it early tonight?
Yeah, we'll call it early. We were hoping to get some stuff from Simon. He couldn't join us. Check out his show, Weaponized News. He's here on Rumble. You can find out what he was probably going to talk to us about in the upcoming week. We won't be doing an election show, but we'll probably be watching some ourselves, so we can give you a wrap up that weekend. So thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Ben. That's Hobbs. And stay home.